Michael.
Michael.
He's really, really rad.
He met Proop's dad.
You'll know him from Greece.
He made sexual advances towards a 21-year-old male spa employee and repeatedly flashed his buttocks at him.
Allegedly.
It's Proop N Murph's TRAVOLTATHon.
Who is Michael?
Michael is a character played by John Travolta in the film Michael. Michael is the Archangel Michael from the Bible. And film kind of depicts, you know, what would happen if the Archangel Michael was to come down, but he was kind of he's a womanizer, and he smokes and he eats a lot of sugar.
I mean, if I spoon it out, it will be 20 or even up to 30 spoonfuls of sugar.
Wow,
I'm going to lose count.
So
I mean,
that really,
it's
really
easier
does
almost,
exceed the amount.
just to pour it out like that. I mean, it's a lot of sugar.
He's a dirtbag and a sleazebag, but he's also a very likable character, I think.
He's a sleazebag and he's a dirtbag, but he's in no way a scumbag.
Very well
So
put,
I would
very
sum up
eloquently put.
Michael. Now, what we said briefly to each other about this film is that it was not what we were expecting. I knew it was going to be a John Travolta angel film, and I thought it was maybe going to be some sort of love story or something about a woman who falls in love with an angel.
General thoughts.
But I will just come out and say that I absolutely love this film.
It was
really
very
do.
funny. It was
I
a very
really love
funny
it.
movie.
From an analytical perspective, it fails on so many levels, but as a spectacle to behold, to be a part of, to watch, completely flawless. I loved it. I went and watched it a second time. I'd consider watching it a third time. I need to be very careful to not become a complete addict to this film, like you said to me.
Yeah, you'll develop a Michael dependency.
What were your thoughts?
I suppose from a critic's perspective, if you are looking at it from a critical lens under the microscope, it's a failure. But in terms of a film that delivers in terms of its entertainment value, it is flawless. It's something that has never been done before and it will never be done again.
Yeah.
It captures a certain magic, does Michael.
The way the characters interact, the way the plot works, the way everything is set up and everything is just so surreal to the point where it doesn't seem like it's been done like that intentionally, but it's surreal to an extent. You feel like you're in some kind of alien world. You're in some kind of dream world.
Yeah, I was about to say it all feels like a dream.
Yeah, it's like a strange dream. It's like a fantasy dream. It's so whimsical in a way that's presented in such a way that seems like it's intended to be very normal. It's like some kind of juxtaposition there, which makes it all the more surreal to me. It's weirder than a film that would intend to be weird.
I'm not 100% sure what the intentions of this movie were. In some aspects, I feel like it was intending to go for this strange comedic sort of atmosphere. Because it is a comedy. It is definitely going for a comedy. But some of the aspects feel like they're not intentionally dreamlike.
The kind of jokes that are in it as jokes also fail to be genuinely witty in a way that makes them even more funny.
Yeah, they fail on the level of comedy they're going for. They create like a new level of comedy.
Yeah. It's like multi-layered.
Post-irony.
Your wings, Michael. People are going to see your wings.
Are you afraid they'll think less of you?
Hepatitis B.
The very beginning of the film, which is in the middle of nowhere, you've got this Randy Newman song playing.
Everywhere. You got a
Xbox Dream.
Which is an original song written just for Michael. And
really?
I believe so, yeah. These two figures go into a bank, and then they come out of the bank, and then the entire thing collapses.
Yeah, it's so strange, but then you rewatch the film and you realize that is what is then later explained.
It's almost genius in the way that one scene kind of sets up the tone for the entire film.
The kind of plot starts that you've got these reporters who...
We don't follow Michael.
We don't follow Michael from the start, that's
these
right.
Three guys Well, two guys and a girl who work for this newspaper company called The Mirror in the big city in Chicago. They're about to be fired, so they need the big article. And a crazy
Yeah.
old woman writes in and says that she's been living with an angel for 6 months.
So the boss at the paper reminded me a lot of the boss at the paper from Spider-Man.
What is this, Craddock, a joke?
It was
Yeah.
pretty much exactly
Angry.
the same, and I thought the kind of tone of the film was similar to, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
But this is before that. This is in the
Yeah.
in the mid-90s.
It makes me think that maybe the director of Spider-Man took inspiration from this film.
The interesting part about this story and about this film is John Travolta's character. And we don't see him until 20 minutes into the film. When we first see him, you've got this amazing reveal of him walking down the stairs, just wearing boxers with his wings on his back, with a cigarette, and then he pulls a beer out of the fridge and he says, "Hello," and then just goes back upstairs again.
I gotta poo.
He says the word pecker.
He says the word pecker at the table, and
Yep.
the woman gets very angry at him.
Why don't you pull on your pecker and see how that's attached?
So we're going from Gotti, where he says prick, to Michael, where he says pecker. The old woman dies in the funniest scene because she's just there cooking eggs, and then she starts coughing, and then it zooms into the eggs, and then just cuts to her funeral.
It's hilarious.
I had
it's
to
hilarious.
skip back. Have I missed something? I skipped back, and no, it's just.
And then they're at the funeral, and the woman's crying, and the guy's like, "Well, why are you crying? You didn't know her that long."
You hardly knew her.
Travolta, I barely know her.
And she said, "She died while she was making us breakfast."
She died cooking us breakfast.
Then she starts writing a country song at the
And this-
funeral. She whips out her notebook and she's like, "I could use this." And then they go on their road trip with Michael.
He like talks to the reporter guy, like getting the reporter guy to like kind of, "Why should I come with you? You've come to take me to your tower. Why should I come with you?" But the thing is, that was Michael's intention all along. The reporter guy says like one very small, unconvincing thing, and Michael's like, "Great, let's go."
Because he wants to go to Chicago to see the big building.
They say this building in Chicago is the tallest building in the world, which surely the Empire State Building has existed back then when this film was made.
So I did a bit of Wikipediaing, and it turns out that in 1996 it was actually quite a tipping point in terms of how they defined the tallest building in the world, but it definitely wasn't one in Chicago.
It's Michael's last hurrah, pretty much. It's his last moments on Earth, which is very significant. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to miss the Earth. C'est la vie." But then he's got some very strange ambitions. The first of which is to see the world's largest ball of twine. And the second is to see the world's largest non-stick frying pan. Hijinks ensues along the way, and they end up getting in trouble.
Well, you say that they're sort of going around places and then hijinks ensue. But this film is more 80% hijinks and shenanigans and 20% plot. It's not there's hijinks happening around the story. There are hijinks with a vague plot around it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I think it makes sense because he's got to get from A to B, but he's got to make the most of the journey. But he can only use up so many miracles before he's going to die. And the reason he's come down basically is because he's set up a bet with God that he can make this man and this woman fall in love, which is very, very strange because this man and this woman have no chemistry whatsoever. Yep. From the get-go, this man is being an absolute prick to this woman because she's had multiple husbands in the past. Mm-hmm. So he's just been really judgmental.
My second husband.
Ah! You left him?
No, he left me in my Camaro.
Ah. I bet he racked up $5,000 on your visa bill, too, didn't he? Didn't he?
Oh, you just know everything, don't you?
There's no plot that suggests that those two will have a relationship until about halfway, 2/3 into the movie when they're in prison and he sort of caresses her hair.
Michael makes the man apologize. For some reason, him apologizing to her, but it just turns the whole relationship into some romantic relationship.
If he was trying to make these two people fall in love, why was he with this old woman for 6 months? And why did he help her collapse the bank?
Yeah, he comes down and collapses the bank for fun, I guess.
So I just thought about it for a sec, and it's probably most likely that he came down to Earth. His purpose for coming to Earth was to collapse the bank, and then he made the bet with God about the man and the woman. So, plot hole averted. Michael is a perfect film.
Oh yeah, how could this have slipped my mind? The battle scene. The battle scene is phenomenal. Yeah. They get out the car for some reason. I can't remember why.
It's when they're seeing the twine, the ball of twine.
There's this Spanish bull on the hill, and Michael sees it.
Cuts to the bull, it cuts to him, and he whispers battle. And he slowly edges towards it, and he's saying battle, and gets louder and louder.
Battle! Battle! They both headbutt, and they both kind of like, the bull's there on the ground, just kind of sat there, and then he's lying on the ground. The reporter comes up to him to see if he's okay, and he's just lying there like,
I am completely happy.
Yeah, he's like, of course I'm okay.
It's such a brilliant scene because it really encapsulates the whole vibe of this film. I think without that scene, the whole film wouldn't make as much sense. Do you know?
No injuries, 6,360 battles.
Michael's constantly coming out with funny little quips. He says he invented queuing up, and then the reporter says,
"Yeah,
well, what were people queuing for?" And then Michael goes, "To get in."
I think my favorite part was every time these characters go into the restaurant, the main reporter guy asks if they have pie.
Do you have pie?
No.
And then in the final restaurant they turn up at, they do actually have pie. So this woman's like, yeah, it's the pie capital of the world. And then she starts naming all the pies. And then they order lots of pie.
Every single pie on the menu.
They order every pie. And then they talk for a good 2 to 3 minutes about what their favorite types of pie are. And then Michael says, hey, why don't you sing your song about pie? And then
that was the thing. Michael said, you have to sing your song. So this is the point where she has to sing her song. And it's like, it's built up. She's this kind of nervous country singer. She wants to be a country singer, but she's got no self-belief. So it's Michael is like helping her to find herself. And she gets up on the stage and she sings a country song. And it's made from all the lyrics she's been writing along the way. The way it's built up to that moment with Michael like foretelling it. And then she's writing the lyrics along the way. It's quite coherent, and I think it's quite nice writing.
The song that she sings, she comes up with the idea for in the previous scene, which is meant to be like not that long before the restaurant scene, which means she has written this song entirely in a very short period of time. I agree. I sort of like the idea of her writing this song, but we're not introduced to the idea of her writing this one specific song until the scene before she performs it.
The scene with the dog dying. The scene with the dog dying was
genius.
So funny. So funny.
He sat with the dog on a log or something like that, and he's talking to the dog. Don't ever let anyone tell you can have too much sugar.
Remember, Sparky, no matter what they tell you, you can never have too much sugar.
They want to reduce everyone's sugar intake to essentially 1 chocolate bar's worth a day, 50 grams a day.
Good morning, Sparky.
And so he just starts belting over. Right as this massive truck comes, I go, Sparky, no, Sparky, no! The truck like flips the dog in some really strange way that the dog is completely intact after this head-on collision with a giant juggernaut of a truck.
Well, when you first see the dog dead, it's very clearly like a stuffed animal or like an awful taxidermied prop or something like that. There's no blood or anything. It's just sort of like a dog lying upside down.
Michael ends up having to resurrect this dog. He's like, oh, I can't resurrect the dog. And then the guy says, you've got to resurrect this dog.
He keeps saying he's not that kind of angel.
I'm not that kind of angel. It isn't my area.
Yeah. He says that's not my area,
Mhm.
but then he does it anyway. But then that means he ends up dying before he ends up getting to the paper and getting the guy's story and everything. I'm pretty sure after he resurrects the dog and then puts it down, they use the exact same clip of it running along as they did for when it was going to run
really?
into the truck. So I was like, what is this, some kind of strange loop? Kind of imagined this dog would just continuously run into a truck and get
Until
resurrected
Michael,
over and over
and then
again.
Michael keeps resurrecting him.
It was like kind of a mind fuck.
It's not
Yeah.
the first dog, because they talk about how the second reporter guy, the fat guy who's married, he had
Mhm.
another dog with the same name that was also hit by a truck.
The whole reason the dog exists is a very, very strange plot device. The dog is so valuable to the news company because they wrote this story on this dog because this reporter, his dog got run over by a tractor when he was a kid. He sees this dog and he's like, oh, this dog is so familiar. I had a dog called Sparky when I was a kid that got killed. And the guy says, oh, this dog's called Sparky. So for some reason, this becomes absolutely insanely viral. There's pictures of the Pope meeting with this dog. There's pictures of all famous people meeting up with this dog. So this dog is really valuable to the news company. And that's why the kind of fat reporter can't lose his job. But if they don't find Michael the angel and bring him back to the company,
the fat guy will get
boss gets
fired.
the dog. And that is what happens because Michael ends up dying right outside the tower and just kind of disappears into a load of feathers and floats away in the wind, which
The
is kind of
boss's
Michael's
plan was to hire the dog trainer to train the dog so that they wouldn't need the fat reporter guy anymore and they could fire him. So that's why he sends the dog trainer on the road trip to go and find Michael. But for some reason, he gets her to lie. He says that she is also a reporter and is also an angel expert. The only reason this secret needs to happen is because the dog trainer says, I'm actually going to stay here. I'm not going to go on this road trip with you guys to go to the biggest ball of twine. But then John Travolta says, but I actually know why you're really here. I know the true secret.
Living the vida the poster.
And when you showed me the poster for this movie, which is just a picture of John Travolta looking very happy. You can't see his wings or anything. You got the text Michael at the top, and then a PNG image of a dog in the bottom right-hand corner.
And the face of John Travolta in that poster is so strange and kind of like uncanny. The way he smiles in it. It's so Michael.
Characterisation and dialogue.
It's not how you eat a lemon.
How do you eat a lemon?
But I do think the concept of Michael as an angel and the way they build it up is quite a compelling concept of just having this kind of imperfect human angel who's like defying the concept of them being like perfect facets of God. It's more like Bible genuine portrayal, because if you think, you know, Satan was an angel, and I think portraying angels in this kind of more human way is an interesting concept.
The other way they could have gone with this, and the more textbook approach to a story like this, would have just been sort of like a fish out of water story, where an angel falls to earth and he's like, oh, what's all this? What's the deal with Earth? And he's sort of doing crazy comical things, like he doesn't know what a car is, or he doesn't know what the moon is.
That is not what Michael is at all, though. But the thing is, it's like the motivation for each of these characters is over such a strange goal, and they go about it in such a strange way. However, it is consistent, and it does actually work, which is the most impressive part, I think, that you could take such weird concepts that would be so difficult to like come up with, but actually string it together in a coherent way. Do you know? The main reporter guy, he says,
"Don't let the bed bugs bite."
The woman says, that's a horrible expression. And the guy says, it's not an expression.
It is not an expression.
What kind of a correction is that?
None of the dialogue means anything.
The whole dynamic of each one of these characters in the dialogue is just so kind of special and unique, because it all comes together in a way that is coherent and is just something golden.
Yeah, it's the most unique thing in the world.
It's reminiscent of films like The Room, you know?
It did feel a lot like sort of like a typical 80s movie with some sort of
Yeah.
crazy character, even though it is from the 90s.
Because it is built on the kind of format of that type of film, you know.
It's not trying to break the boundaries of cinema, although you could
Yeah.
argue that Michael did do that.
You could argue.
It's just trying to be very fun.
But that's the thing, within those boundaries, it goes to the complete extreme. Like if it was around the skeleton of this is going to be some kind of surreal, weird, wacky, wonderful kind of thing, the kind of film that it is wouldn't kind of live up to that. But it's built around such a mundane skeleton and takes it to the complete extreme that kind of film can be.
Sex.
John Travolta talks about how when he's on Earth, all the women are attracted to him. But he says at one point to the reporter or the dog trainer or whatever she is, the reason that she isn't attracted to him is because he can turn it off. He has these powers to manipulate women, and he is choosing to have them on, which means that these women aren't really in love with him. It's sort of like some sort of pheromone manipulation, which means there's some sort of dubious form of consent going on.
I'm not ethical.
You're right. He's hypnotizing women in order to manipulate them to have sex with him throughout the film. With a lot of women, he does it to escape the law.
Yeah, that scene is so strange. They have some really strange ideas of what an angel is, like the fact that he smells like women's childhood.
That smell is so familiar. It's like something from childhood.
From the perspective of the main woman, she's like, he smells like cookies. But then later on, when we meet other women, they're also like, he smells like candy canes or whatever. He smells like a specific scent that is meant to, I don't know, maybe put at ease the person who he's with.
Yeah, because it's only women who do that. But strangely enough, it's also the dog trainer, angel expert, reporter woman, whatever she is. She can smell it as well, despite him putting a block on her. So she's not like attracted to him, but she can still smell him as like the smell of cookies.
Yeah,
which is interesting, but I guess it does still work because
it's a plot hole that's absolutely ruined the movie for me, and I can no longer enjoy Michael.
I wouldn't go that far, Murph, because the thing is, it doesn't completely break the plot, because a woman is allowed to smell cookies without feeling horny, and the horniness aspect of Michael and the smell of childhood food can function as separate entities, I think. Except I don't think it's made as clear, because when the women are lusting over him...
It's caramels. He smells like caramels.
It's cotton candy. It's cookies. He smells like cookies.
He smells of caramel. He smells of cannabis.
It's strange because only the women.
That's
the guys don't smell it.
Yeah, it's kind of an entanglement.
Strange plot point.
The Bible says, buy children's shoes, now.
The old woman says that he is an actual angel from the Bible who was in Revelations 12 verse 7 or 7 verse 12 or something like that, and he is one of the angels that tried to kill Lucifer or something like that. This movie is canon to the real Bible. This
And I think that is brilliant, because first of all, that means John Travolta is a character in the Bible, and second of all, it means this film has the potential to start a new religion.
Or it could start like sort of a Bible cinematic universe or something like that, where you have all these side characters from the Bible who get their own spin-off movies where they come to Earth and smell like sugar. Job the movie. I agree.
Top quotes. My dad's friend, who is a carpenter, gave us a really good quote on making a bespoke fitted shelf for our house living room.
What would you say are your top quotes from the movie Michael?
I like when he says, "What's the opposite of white?" And the guy says black, and he says, "No, yolk." And then the fat reporter says, "What is that, like an egg joke? An egg joke?"
The bloke came over and he's like, "Can I pull on your wings and see how they're attached?" And then John Travolta says, "Can I pull on your pecker and see how it's attached?"
Go on, I say that. I didn't say that.
That is excellent foreshadowing to the fact that John Travolta is a closeted homosexual.
Who had sex with your dad on a plane.
Other quotes, other memorable quotes.
I'm a writer too.
Oh, really? What did you write?
Psalm 85.
Obviously, battle.
Right at the start of the film. It wasn't from John Travolta, but from the J. Jonah Jameson of this movie. Eskimos, Indians, who cares? Americans want to see pictures of Americans.
Or Indians, or Eskimos, or Eskimo Indians, or Eskimos, or Eskimo Indians, or Eskimo Indians, or Eskimos, or Eskimo.
They are American.
And it's funny because he's not an American himself. He's played by a British man.
Yeah.
The jail cell scene.
That whole scene in the jail cell where the guy's just mocking this woman for having multiple husbands.
Another husband has popped up.
The reason you like dogs is because they'll just roll over for you and you can just tell them what to do, unlike men.
Dorothy's good with dogs. I have noticed this. Sit. Stay. Roll over. No.
That's how you want your men to. It's really strange that this guy would have that kind of really judgmental prejudice attitude towards this complete stranger
For
who's
no
only
reason.
just met for no reason.
He is apparently in love with as well.
But then he apologizes.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
In this one scene, and then all of a sudden they fall in love.
Well, I don't think they were actually naturally in love. I think because we established that John Travolta has this sort of manipulation of how people like love. He makes all these women have sex with him and stuff like that. Maybe he has done the same thing to these two.
But the thing is, I think that is plot breaking, because the whole reason that he's come down to Earth is because he had a bet with God that he could make these people kind of naturally fall in love. But if he's just used his angel powers for that, surely that kind of ruins the whole concept of that.
The film establishes there are different types of angels. So not all of these angels have this power to manipulate love like Michael does, I'm assuming. He doesn't say it has to happen naturally. Like maybe Michael has come to Earth because it's God's plan or whatever for these two people to fall in love. So Michael uses his angel powers to do that. That's the only explanation I can think of as to why those two do not care for each other at all before the prison scene and then are madly in love at the end of it.
But the thing is, he says it as if he had to come down because it was a bet with God. But surely if it was just kind of God's intention and he sent him down there, it wouldn't be explained in that way, do you know?
But the scene before they're in prison where they are on trial for destruction of property and the judge is like, can somebody please explain what happened? Michael's like cleaning his teeth out with one of his own feathers from his wings, which is kind of disgusting if you think about it. That's like
it's
cleaning
like
your teeth with ass hair or something.
It's like flossing with your own hair.
And then she's like, come with me into my own private quarters. We can only assume what happened in there. And then they're off the hook. They're free to go. He essentially forced this woman to make love with him and abused the American justice system.
I wouldn't say that he forced the woman to have sex with him, but he definitely manipulated her to solicit the sex. Manipulated her to solicit consent off her, which I think is definitely immoral.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of like if one person is drunk and another person is not.
The whole point of Michael is he's not moral. Angels aren't just kind of completely beings of just moral correctness. They're, kind of spiritual in the same way as the human soul there's good and bad within them. Lucifer was an evil angel and Michael is no more moral. It's just he's more loyal to God.
It doesn't treat him being a womanizer as immoral. What it treats as immoral is him, I don't know, smoking and drinking and stuff like that and just sort of being generally incompetent. But him going around and having sex isn't treated as an evil thing. It's just sort of played as a joke because John Travolta is a very attractive man.
Yeah, it's played comedically, but the thing is, I think you're seeing it as more dark than it is, because I wouldn't consider it rape. because he's just using like kind of an angelic power of kind of being a really attractive guy, which he can choose to turn off.
This is looking at it from the darkest perspective possible. Imagine when this effect wears off and the woman wakes up and she's like, oh my God, I've just sort of had sex with this man, and she's not attracted to him after the effect wears off. Or even worse, she doesn't remember it.
Or she completely falls in love with Michael and then he disappears and she's left depressed all her life. In all circumstances, these women, all these countless women which he kind of uses, they're objectified, and they're just kind of seen as...
He does it for his own pleasure. He doesn't...
For pleasure, for Michael.
He's like, it's my last day on Earth, you gotta get that poontang. According to IMDb, this movie was directed by a woman. And That's
interesting.
When you look at it, it does seem very like 80s, 90s sort of sexist depictions of how the women in this movie are treated. It was a different time.
It's not presented as if what he's doing is moral. It is a facet of Michael which is supposed to show that he is immoral, I think. Because that's the thing in the Bible. Adultery is a sin. All of these things that he's doing are sins. I think that is the point of it.
I didn't get the idea that it was being presented as immoral.
I definitely did get that it was presented as being immoral, because it's in with all of these scenes where he's also he starts a bar fight, he goes to jail, he gets out of the courtroom in that way. Even just showing him picking his teeth with one of his own feathers, like, I'm Michael and I don't give a fuck. Just being Michael, you know? It's mischievous and it is presented as a joke, but that no way undermines the fact that they are trying to show you that Michael is an immoral character, and that's where the humor's coming from.
I somewhat agree.
Yeah, I'm glad we could reach a middle ground on that one, Harris Murphy.
John Travolta's dance moves.
He does some funky dancing in this.
Hey, wait a minute, Mr. Dutchman.
When he's in the restaurant, he puts some music on the jukebox, and he does the classic John Travolta dancing that he is known for.
I just imagined my baby imagining her.
Yeah, the dancing is brilliant.
He's just having the time of his life.
The ending.
I think that the love story with these two characters is nowhere near as interesting when Michael isn't there. So those final 15 minutes when Michael is dead feel sort of redundant.
The point is, Michael has failed because the whole scene where the dog gets hit by a car and the woman reveals that her true intention was to train Sparky, and the guy says, and the guy's really pissed off. So everything falls apart in that scene. But then in the end, they resolve it by Michael manages to come back. God gives him a second chance or something, even though it's his last visit on Earth. And right at the very end, he gets the two to meet up. They could have definitely done that better.
It's just way more dull because there's no Michael. And it felt like the movie was about to end, but then it didn't. And there's even a scene with like the two reporters talking about whether or not Michael was even real.
As far as I'm concerned, it never happened.
If it didn't happen, where's your raincoat?
Never happened.
There seems to be so much there that they can't have dreamt it or believe they've dreamt it. Because they did go on that road trip and they did tell their boss about it. There would even be the physical evidence of the letter they were sent.
Yeah, both of them having this conversation about how they've had this kind of group hallucination of Michael and just kind of coming to the conclusion. Like at the start, they had no kind of skepticism, either of them. They were just like, oh, let's go meet this angel. And then they were like, well, hey, Michael's an angel, I guess. They kind of accepted it the whole time. So it was very strange that they would have that conversation at the end.
The old woman appears at the end as well. He turns to the old woman and he says something. It's meant to be that they're both ghosts or something like that. And then he freezes time. And then the two of them like dance through the streets, like through all the people. It was a very Michael ending to the film Michael.
This whole film was just Michael from start to finish.
Spit out your gum.
One thing I wanted to add, which I'd forgotten before, is the main reporter guy has this really weird reoccurring thing about tying angels in with having a popped tire and needing a jack.
There's no jack! Of course, there is no jack!
They're in the car at the start and the woman asks, oh, have you ever had any experience with angels? And he's like, yeah, I was on the highway and my tire popped and we didn't have a jack. And then all of a sudden this angel arrives with a jack. And then later in the film, the guy's like, no, we're not going to stop for the non-stick frying pan. So Michael says 3, 2, 1 and the tire pops. And then in the last scene where he's talking to the guy, he's like,
And I've got to believe that someday I'm going to be walking down the street, and at that moment, a car is going to come around the corner with the woman of my dreams in it and blow a flat. Right there, next to where I'm standing.
He just comes up with this very specific scenario about a popped tire and needing a jack.
Well, popping a tire is something that has happened to most people. It's a relatable situation. And if the film ties that to angels, people will be like, oh, I've had help when I popped a tire. I must have met with an angel, an AA angel.
When they used it in the last part where he's like, oh, please, I'm supposed to believe that, and then comes out with this really weirdly specific thing. Why would the way you're convincing yourself Michael isn't real is the fact that you'd find it hard to believe that this very specific scenario that doesn't even happen.
Michael isn't real because this one specific event hasn't and will not happen.
My balls itch.
I don't think from like a marketing perspective, Michael is a very good title for this film at all, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Me neither. I wouldn't have any part of this film any other way. It's got the most perfect flaws imaginable. And that's what makes it beautiful. Like a gemstone with those fractures in it that reflect the light in just such a beautiful way.
If anyone else played Michael, well, first of all, we wouldn't be covering it on the Proop N Murph TRAVOLTATHON, but also it wouldn't be anywhere near as entertaining. The only person I think who could carry this would be Nicolas Cage.
But even still, he just doesn't have that kind of groovy Travolta factor. That's Michael.
That is Michael. So what is our final verdict on Michael?
Well, I think I'm going to say it's not perfect, but I think that's what makes it brilliant.
Far from perfect.
From the way that I personally enjoyed it, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I think if I'm taking everything into account, I would probably go right down the middle and give it like a 5, maybe a 6. However, for the show, the Proop N Murph TRAVOLTATHON, just because of all the Travolta hijinks, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Genius movie.
Travolta scores out of £5.
Oh, yeah.
This is a definite fiver. I mean, Travolta is Travolta. He's Michael.
Fiver, yeah.
He's the full flaming Travolta the whole way through, start to finish.
It's going to be hard to top Michael.
Do you know what? I'm changing my review. It's a 10. It's a 10. It's not a 9. It's a 10.
This film about an angel has converted us to Christianity.
Mm-hmm. To be honest, I didn't have faith in this film before I watched it. I'm going into the next following films with an open mind and an open heart because Michael has opened my eyes and showed me the way. Well, I think that about concludes today's episode of the TRAVOLTATHON.
I think it does.
Hope you enjoyed. I've been Murph, you've been Proop.
See you next time.
Travolta. I was just a board-scope engineer.
Travolta. Don't go to that.